Where I think I've got something to contribute is about the history of the trail and reading something into the lives of these people. For example, in Maine, I spent half a day hiking on Saddleback Mountain. I spent 3 days in the basement of the state library in Augusta reading old letters. I've hiked on the trail in each of the 14 states that it goes through, sampled it in that way. But I don't presume to be an authority on hiking. There's lots of great books out there by hikers. What I was trying to do was convey the history, the story of the place.
The trail is, of course, physically mountains, rocks, ledges, trees, roots, and so on. But you say that the Appalachian Trail is really a story of people.
One way to think of it is there's nothing natural about the trail. That sounds backwards, I realize. But the trail is only there because hundreds of dedicated people have marked it and cleared it and maintained it. So it's a human place as much as it's a natural place.
Something I had not known until I read the book was that in the 1930s, when the trail was really starting to come together, it was thought that the link that goes roughly from Mount Washington to Katahdin was so remote, so far from people and volunteers in particular, so rugged that maybe that part of the trail would have to be abandoned.
Yeah, what made the construction of the trail possible was that it was so close to New York and Philadelphia and Washington, which was a source of volunteers, people with free time. Back then, people with cars that could take a group of workers out there to clear trail. And the section through Maine didn't have any of that. What it did have was the leader of the Appalachian Trail effort, Myron Avery, a native of the state, who was a fiercely committed, I think nowadays we would call him compulsive person. And he said, by hook or by crook, we're going to get to Katahdin.
Something else that'll be of interest, particularly to people in Maine, is that one of the people who was most influential in creating the trail actually wanted the area around Katahdin to become a national park. And he really butted heads with Percival Baxter, the former governor of Maine, who donated the land that made up Baxter State Park.
What Myron Avery saw was that Governor Baxter's protection of the land that's now Baxter State Park at that time wasn't enough. Avery cooked up this plan to try to turn it into a national park. Governor Baxter said no way, and Governor Baxter had his way. Ultimately, the state did fund the protection of the place, the management of it. But Avery thought the only way to protect it the way it needed to be was to turn it into a national park.
As we look ahead to the future of the Appalachian Trail, 50, 100, 500 years from now, presumably the trail itself is not going to change all that much, and yet the experience that people have on it is going to change. And you make a really interesting point that just cell phones and being able to shoot videos and send videos from on the trail has really altered the way people experience it.
It's a different experience in the 21st century than it was. But here's the thing. We keep going. In fact, we go in even greater numbers nowadays. So even though it's not what it was in 1921 or 1937, it still has this appeal to us, this separation from the day-to-day that we continue to crave, and I expect we will for a long, long time.
The trail is clearly a special kind of place and one that gets people out in a different environment, gets them out into nature, gets them away from their everyday lives. And you end the book with kind of a hopeful observation. You say that the trail's original ideals remain intact.
The man who first proposed the Appalachian Trail, Benton Mackay, what he hoped was that it would be a place where we could literally, but also figuratively, get a different perspective on our settled industrial urban lives. And to this day, it still does that.